Thank you very much. Really looking forward to the day. So, as was mentioned, my name is Abdul Khaled. For the past 4.5 years, I was going to say 5 years, but for the past 4.5 years, I've been working at E.On Next, leading the digital and customer experience teams. Since January, I've now moved to our Netherlands branch to work with some of our brands in the Netherlands to really try and implement some of those XLG models over there. So we're going international. Right, so before I start, nice little icebreaker, just to make sure we're all awake and listening. So, can I get everyone to stand up? Yeah? Okay. All right. Good. And now, can I get everyone to sit down? I feel bad for you. Sorry, you just stood up, and then I'll get you to stand down again. All right. Now, how many people, and actually, I usually ask how many people are aware of MPS, but seeing as the event that we all are aware of MPS, right? So a different question. How many people like the use of MPS? Ah, fantastic. Right. Well, we're going to have to run with it because it's the only measure I have right now for this exercise. So, I'm going to give you the name of 5 brands, and I want you to guess which one of these brands had the highest MPS last year. All right, so I'm going to throw 5 brands out and just put your hands up. First one. Well, actually, let me tell you the brands first. Right. The 5 brands are Netflix, Tesla, We Buy Any Car, Apple, and OnlyFans. So I'm gonna throw the brands out, and you've got to put your hand up which one you think had the highest MPS. So let's go with Netflix, Tesla, Apple, We Buy Any Car, OnlyFans. Yeah, take a good look around. Yeah, take a good look around of the OnlyFans fans. Okay, the answer was Tesla. It's not exact science, but yeah. Now, one of the reasons why I look at Tesla quite closely is because of the customer-centric nature of how they really center their whole organization around customer centricity and the aggressive nature of being customer first. So what I want to take you through today is our journey on how we try to take a similar approach and really embedding XLG into our model. Now, one of the key aspects of having an experience-led growth approach is really understanding the voice of customer. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share some examples of interesting and colorful customer feedback. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some volunteers. So Lily, if you can run around with the mic, right? Should have told you about this before, actually.
I'm here.
And we're going to get some volunteers. So can I get a volunteer? Who wants to volunteer first?
I don't know what they're volunteering
Nope,
for.
that's the magic. You have no idea what you're about to volunteer.
I will volunteer you, though. I am coming.
All right. So, disclaimer, I know who you are, but for the rest of everyone, can you tell us your name and where you're from?
Paris, from E.On Next.
Okay. This wasn't planned.
He didn't plant me, I swear.
All right. So, Paris, you also don't know what's about to happen. So, I'm going to throw some words on screen, and you've just got to read it out. Understood? Simple task. All right. Oh, no, here we go. Can you read that out for everyone?
My parcel was launched over the fence like it was competing in the Olympic javelin. Landed in the rose bush, still faster than Royal Mail.
Do we have anyone from Royal Mail here? Okay, good. Okay. Right, another volunteer. Who wants to volunteer next? Over there. Right. Name and company you're from.
I'm Harriet. I'm from Butternut Box.
Okay. You ready?
Ready.
Okay, let's go.
Your app just congratulated me for logging in. I haven't achieved anything yet, but I feel deeply seen.
Right, we've got a few more. Who else wants to volunteer? Just at the front over here. Okay, name and company you're from.
Yeah, my name's Laura. I'm from First Bus at First Group.
Brilliant. Okay, you ready? Okay, let's go.
Your AI chatbot is either sentient or drunk. It told me to follow my dreams when I asked about my overdrive.
Brilliant. Right, let's get a few more. Who else wants to volunteer? Right, you have been picked on.
Sorry.
Right, name and company.
Thomas Dennis from Digital Ventures.
Okay, brilliant. You have to check for your own name.
Yes, I did actually.
Right, you ready?
Yes. Okay. I clicked unsubscribe and your newsletter grew stronger. It now arrives twice a day. I respect the hustle.
Brilliant. Right, we've got one more. Right, who wants to do the last one and take us home? Right, name and company.
Chris from On Beer.
Okay, ready?
I think so. Customer service said they'd escalate my issue. I think it ascended. I haven't heard from it since.
Right, I actually lied, there is one more. Right, bonus. Oh, over there. Got it. Right, now I also know you, but for everyone else, name and company.
James O'Connor, Amplify XM.
Okay, you ready, James?
Sure. Your trousers tall as I sneeze, overstanding in public. Thank you for the character development.
Brilliant. All right, I think that's, yes. So, nice little exercise, but this is a colorful example of what you get when customers really want to express how they feel about your business or your brand. I don't want to focus on those customers today, however. I want to focus on the silent customers. Customers who actually don't complain or engage, but in fact just leave silently. Now, this was a trend that first came to my attention when we were looking at churn data at E.On, looking at reasons why customers were leaving us. And one of the things that stood out, which was quite interesting, was that 75% of customers that were leaving us stopped engaging 3 months prior to them churning. Now, not a cause and an effect, but an interesting correlation and something that I wanted to investigate a little bit further. And it reminded me of something that a famous psychologist, John Gottman, had said. Now, John Gottman is a specialist in relationship psychology and actually has a 94% hit rate in predicting the likelihood of a couple divorcing. Now, he uses a series of signals, and one of the signals that he uses is something called stonewalling, which is emotional disengagement. Now, the idea here is if there's a couple and they're having an argument and one side of, well, one partner is completely disengaged from that argument, it means they've left the relationship. They can't be bothered to even argue or fight their case, right? So even if your relationship is tough and you're struggling, the fact that you're engaged in an argument to put your point across, it shows you care. When you stop caring, you're disengaged. And this is something that I thought really resonated with what was happening here, because what happened was customers weren't just immediately leaving, right? Just like that couple who were in an argument, it wasn't at that point that they disengaged. It was months prior, they already exited the relationship. Similar with business, right? Customers don't just fall off a cliff and suddenly exit your business. It's a series of signals that would have happened months prior that led to that decision for them already making up their mind that they were going to leave you. And we wanted to understand what that was. What was those early warning signs before you get into the disengagement zone and before you end up churning? So one of the common reasons, and this is where we started, one of the common reasons why a customer would leave an energy company is through bill shock. Now, bill shock is, it actually is what it says. You get a bill and you get shocked. But you get shocked because you expect a certain amount to be charged on your bill, and rather you get something else which is usually higher. And one of the most common reasons for bill shock is not submitting your meter read. So if you don't submit your meter read, naughty. But having a consecutive number of missed meter reads can lead to the energy company then estimating your bill for you. And usually when they estimate the bill, it can go higher. And that is one of the reasons for customers getting into debt and then having a negative sentiment. So that education piece around having to submit your meter read to then make sure your account is healthy and your bill is healthy, there's a gap there. Now, one of the things we tried to do early on was try and incentivize people submitting their meter read, because just sending them a reminder wasn't doing the trick. So we thought, let's try a cash incentive. So we asked customers, if we gave you a cash incentive, and this was in the form of a sort of a spin the wheel type mechanism, you submit your meter read, you get a chance to spin a wheel type mechanism, and then you could potentially win up to £100 just for submitting meter read. So something that you would do for your own benefit, you can now get a cash incentive for. So when we asked customers, about 86% said that this would convince them to submit a read. When it came down to it, only 18% actually went and submitted. The first lesson here is don't trust what customers say. But the more important lesson here is we're trying to uncover the wrong motivation here. Just giving them some cash, and especially a cash which is not guaranteed, you have to kind of go through a little game, and then you may win or you might not win. The motivation wasn't enough. So there was a few things that we had to focus on. A, the motivation. How do we motivate customers to actually submit their meter read? Something that is quite boring and probably not top of your list when you come home from work. Secondly, what we did see was when you send customers constant reminders, so average about 5 to 6 emails, they would eventually do it, right? You'd get about 20 to 40% of customers who would then submit their read after constant reminders. But that's annoying, right? And that doesn't, even if you do submit your read after those reminders, you're almost harassing customers at that point. And it's not, even though they submit their read, it's not being done with any positive sentiment. And then the third thing is how can you create a positive reinforcement behind it? So again, being able to nag them to send a read doesn't create any sort of joy or excitement around it. So we launched this tool, which is called the Account Health Check. Now, what the Account Health Check does, it's a gamified way. It checks your account for actions that you need to do in order to keep your account healthy. One of them is submitting your read. And if your account's healthy, if you've got all the ticks, you get this little smiley sun jumping up around with some confetti and really celebrating that your account is healthy. Honestly, if you're not a customer, try it, because you will never be more proud to be an energy customer, opening that up and seeing that sun jump up and down. But if there's something missing in your account, an action that needs to be done, you get a sad sun. And once we've gone through it, we've seen that there's an 80% increase in meter reads. Now, those 3 factors, motivation, so having something gamified rather than a very threatening email saying submit your meter read, that really seems to go to the heart of motivation. The constant reminder, right? Multiple emails is annoying and is harassing, but this is more of a gamified way where it's more kind of like a challenge, you've got streaks, and it's a constant reminder, but it's done in a nice playful way. And then the positive reinforcement of when you've actually submitted your read, you get a celebration. That works far better than just giving people free cash. And actually, when we've asked people, why did you not take up the cash offer? Customers would come back and say, that cash is nice, but the effort to get off my seat, take my phone out, go to the meter, open it up, it's not worth the £100. But a sad sun, yeah, I can't take that. So that was an area that was quite obvious for us. And obviously, it took a little bit of root cause analysis to understand, okay, how can we actually solve for this? But an area that was less obvious was office noise. Now, when it came to office noise, what we saw in our feedback in the Chattermill dashboard, we saw 0.9% of people commenting about office noise. And by the way, office noise being negative in this connotation, not people celebrating that there's office noise. So people were complaining that there was office noise, but it was a very, very, very small fraction of people complaining. So on average, we'd get about 50,000 comments a month, and this would be about 45. Now, this would never show up in any top 10 issues to solve, in any of your root cause analysis, in any kind of document or report that would say, fix this and it will move the needle on your numbers. It will never show up because of how small the volume is. But this is where context is really key. The fact that 45 people were complaining about office noise didn't mean it was limited to those people. It just meant those were the only ones bothered to complain about it. The fact that 45 people were hearing disruptive office noise when they were calling in to contact us meant that everybody else was also feeling the same. They just couldn't be bothered to complain. And that comes back to our silent customers, right? feel the pain, but they don't complain about it. And when we speak to customers, we see, look, customers say it's disruptive, it's disrespectful, it's unprofessional, lack of empathy. Especially when customers are calling in to discuss something quite serious about maybe their financial situation, the fact that they can't pay a bill, they lose confidence in us that we actually care about them. So yes, it's noise, but it has severe ramifications. And what happens is, it doesn't immediately cause customers to churn. These are the silent signals, right? They might see this in, at this stage here, 6 months prior to them leaving. It might not be the decision that causes them to leave, but what it does, it causes hesitation the next time they want to contact us. Can they actually support? Do I want to go through this service again? And then a few months later, they then get the bill shock, and it's compounded. They probably don't know the signals that led them to that decision, but it's a mental model. They're already starting from a position of negative compassion towards us, and then it just takes one more thing to then take them off that cliff. So what did we do about it? The solutions were quite simple, in fairness. It was, when we understood and analyzed, it was simple things like people using the wrong headset or leaving their headset in a different place, coming the next day, then having to use their personal headsets, simple things like this. Within a few months, we were able to completely eliminate any comments about office noise. Now, this in isolation doesn't solve your issues, of course, but these are the signals that compound to create the experience that you need to create. And so what we did, in fact, launch an experience ecosystem. And one of the key drivers behind that was the app. So we tried to create an app to solve for the engagement problem, to create value-added services through our app, which we launched last year, to really try and bring customers on that journey. So that account health check that I showed you, it's just gamifying, making things a little bit more playful, making things a little bit more engaging. Now, whenever you start any CX initiative, and I think you'll all sort of be familiar with this, proving the ROI is very difficult. That's why I started with the NPS conversation, because that's usually what people brand CX departments as, just increasing CSAT and NPS, which is very difficult to tangibly quantify the value to your bottom line. But if you do focus on the experience, you can return a good, strong ROI. And with this app, we saw a 37% reduction in churn, just by increasing engagement with customers, adding some value, creating that value with customers. Now, that's an approach that we took by really embedding an experience-led growth model in our business. Really, the way that I frame it, it's the behavior system that allows us to understand the human behind the customer. So I want to leave you with some practical tips. How can you run this yourself? So there's a silent customer workshop template that I've been running now for the past 3 months. It goes like this. It's a 3-day workshop. It's very lean. It's very easy. Day 1 is about collecting the insights and observations. So it would help if you had a tool that synthesized all of your customer feedback and that really gave you a summarized view. If you have any suggestions for any tools like that, please feel free to share. But it also looks at 360 insights. So it looks at behaviors, or observing customer behavior, how they're going through your channels and your platforms. And then the frontline insight. So again, if you happen to have a really cool tool that allowed you to capture feedback from multiple different sources, again, do please share any ideas if you have in your talk later. You can also create dashboards for frontline staff, which is what we did. So we had an amazing initiative where we started bringing the customer feedback, the voice of customer, and bring it really, really close to our frontline staff. So frontline staff could actually see feedback that the customers had left post a direct interaction with them, which obviously helps with L&D, but it also means it can feed into workshops like this, because when you see a customer feedback, it doesn't have the context. But I'll tell you who has the context: the person who dealt with them on the phone lines. And providing that context really helps. Then you go into day 2, which is about creating that decision architecture. So understanding those customer decision points. What are the points of your journey that customers need to make a decision? You then have these customer motivation cards, which is, again, bespoke to your business and your data. What are the different elements that drive motivation for your customers in your business context? Again, similar to the meter read example that we showed earlier. And then we've been working on this AI prediction engine because, if you can accelerate some of that, why not? And then having all your data fed into an AI engine, which is able to then predict some of the decisions that customers could make at certain points, really sets you up for day 3, which is customer co-creation. So bring the customer in with you and then validate, run your ideas by them, stress test them, really use them as your guide. And then be able to, it's called a fast track plan because people usually have ideas. Can you put an experimentation plan in and a fast track that you can then take back into the business to then deliver? Now, all sounds great, but I want to bring it home to the why. So why go through all that effort and all that trouble to build an XLG model in your business? I want to share 2 stories from customers that I spoke to during the energy crisis a few years ago when it was at its peak. So the energy crisis, as I'm sure you're all familiar with, impacted the cost of living crisis, right? So energy prices were so high, it's still an ongoing issue, but at its peak, it was impacting cost of living. And so we wanted to understand what impact are we really having on customers? Because everything I've shown you looks nice, but it's a metric. Really want to understand the human impact behind all of this. So I spoke to some customers. One customer I spoke to was a single father. He used to have custody of his 5-year-old son about 2 or 3 days a week. And he would keep his son with him in his small office room, keeping the doors closed, the windows shut, just to keep as much heat inside as possible. And he would have his son play next to him, just hoping the heat from the computer could keep him warm. Right? A father who was fearful that he could lose custody just because he couldn't keep his son warm while he was with him. I spoke to a mother who said that her and her husband, they don't have a single hot meal in the day because they wait for the kids to come home from school so they can use their appliance just once. Sometimes they'll go without eating. And these are real stories with real humans, with real problems. And that is sometimes what we struggle to uncover because we're too focused by ROI, revenue and profits and market share and growth. We sometimes forget there's a human behind that number. And if nothing else, what I would encourage all of you to take is invest your time and effort into understanding the human behind the customer, whatever mechanism that is, right? Find a way to really connect the dots with the customer. Thank you very much.